If you've left the practice of law for a long period of time, there's a lot of stuff you need to consider. Attorneys that leave for a long period of time often left because they weren't committed. And so you need to decide what's going to happen differently this time if you come back after having left. You need to think about how were you received when you were practicing law? Did you get a good reception? Why did you leave? And will you have the same problems? A lot of times when people leave a relationship with another person and then they go back, it never works out. I mean, as a matter of fact, I would say most of the time when that happens, it doesn't work out. Anybody leaves a position. There's a saying that a famous entrepreneur, a billionaire in Los Angeles, and I'm forgetting his name, but it's from a long time ago, but he said one of his rules is never rehire anyone. And the reason you don't want to rehire people is because they're always going to have the same problems and leave. So you have to wonder, if you left the practice of law, why did you leave? And then if you want to go back to your existing firm, you want to think about if they'll welcome you back. If they will welcome you back, then that's probably a good sign. But you just need to understand the reasons you left and if you're really committed to the practice of law. If you've left and you want to go back to your existing firm, you have to understand how you did when you were there. Most of the time when you've left your firm and you want to come back, if you went on a pregnancy leave or something along those lines, or you were sick, in most cases they're going to welcome you back. But if you've left the firm, in most cases they won't welcome you back. If you left for other personal reasons, like you needed time off or something, they'll probably say to you something along the lines of, thank you, but we don't have any needs right now. That's what usually happens. If the firm's going to welcome you back, then you know they will, because there's people there that are your advocate, and they will generally tell you that. I mean, you have to have done very well. You have to have advocates that are still there. You also have to belong to a practice group that's still got work and is still quite busy. One of the facts you need to face if you want to transition back to the law, if you've only practiced for a little more than a year and left, is that realistically, you may not be brought back as a second-year associate. You may even expect it to start a little bit before then. You also need to be prepared to have a lot of rejection, because if you left after only 1 year, that doesn't really show commitment. Once you start the practice of law, you really need to get a very good runway of like 5 or 6 years before you understand what you're doing. So as someone that has a little over a year of experience, you're essentially asking the firm to take a risk on you and bring you in with the hope that you can be trained and that you'll stay. And most people that left for one reason or another that early aren't going to have the wherewithal to stretch it out. So you need to be prepared for a long job search if you want to work in a major firm especially. And then you need not to be that defensive when you're asked questions, because people are going to probe your reasons for leaving. And there's enough applicants out there for most jobs that they don't necessarily need to hire you. You need to be aware of that. I mean, they can hire people that haven't left. So it's something to think about as well. If you've left for a significant length of time, there's a lot of things that I recommend. The first is, if you'd come out of a very prestigious firm to begin with, you may not be able to immediately get into a prestigious firm again. You're going to need to look at a lot of firms. You need to also be flexible geographically. So in addition to being flexible the type of firm you work at, you need to be flexible about where you're going to work. Your most important thing if you've left the practice of law after hiatus is to get back into a firm and to get training and to continue with a profession. Some ways you can find jobs would be using job boards like Law Crossing. Law Crossing is a great resource because you can find opportunities in smaller cities and larger cities and things that may be overlooked and that you're not going to find on public job boards. You can call around and talk to recruiters. I mean, BCG would probably be interested in working with you, so you can talk to recruiters or other recruiters. You can contact alumni from your school. But the most important thing, I think, is to get out there and network. So you apply to as many jobs as you possibly can. You should look up on BCG Search. We have a list of top firms in different practice areas and locations. You should apply to all the top firms in your practice area that you can find. And you also need to just get out there and network and meet people and talk to them about your job search as much as you can.